Hey everyone, this is Corey. Today I wanted to do a video on how to create an image carousel in React Native. If you're looking at the screen, on the left is an Android emulator and I have a image carousel implemented. As you can see, not only does it allow you to manually swipe, but it has an auto scroll feature as well, where after a certain time interval it will automatically scroll to the next page. I had a client of mine have this as a requirement, and I couldn't find a library to do this on by itself, so I had to roll my own. And so this video is just essentially going to cover that. From a high level, essentially what we're doing is we're using a scroll view under the hood, and we're using a property on that scroll view called a ref. And this ref, if we scroll up to our lifecycle methods, we're actually using this property called scroll2 within that ref. And the scroll2 allows me to just scroll to a certain point. So I'm going to do a tutorial that essentially sets this component up. And you're free to look at the actual code in the comments below. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, to get started with your code, you can either do a React Native init, or you can just copy my starter code. The most important thing is that you'll need to have a set of images that you can use. In my starter code, I do have a set of random images that I got from the internet, and so these worked out just fine. Now, we're going to create another component called Image Carousel, or I guess I'll call it Background Carousel. Let's just go ahead and set that up here. We don't have the file created yet, but it'll just save us some work later if we just go ahead and specify the background carousel now. So let me close off this view, and I'll create a component in here called background carousel, and it's going to take one property called images equals images, and just save that. Now we'll actually create a new file, and I'm going to call this background carousel. So in this, just to start out, let's just do our imports. So I'll import star as React from React, and then I'll import a few React Native components. I'll do style sheet for styling, view, scroll view, dimensions, and image. I'll do that from React-Native. Alright, now one thing that we'll need to do eventually is we'll just need to get the device width, and we'll use that later on in this component, but I'll just go ahead and get that now since we just imported the dimensions object. So we'll do const device width. We'll set that equal to dimensions dot get window dot width. This dimensions module, this is just something that's built into React Native. It essentially can return the width or height of the device. So that's really handy for what we're going to do here. So next is kind of the core component of this background carousel. It's the actual class component. So say class background carousel, and that'll extend react.component. And this is going to have a constructor, and I'll just specify the props, and I'll open that up. It's going to have super props, and it's also going to have a state. It's going to be this dot state equals selected index is what I'm going to call it. And that's just essentially going to track the index of whatever image it's on. And I'm just going to set that to 0 at first, which makes sense. Next, what I'll do is I'll actually do the ref piece. So I'll just call it scroll ref. And I'll set that equal to react.create ref, and we'll essentially use that later. The first thing I'll do is I'll do the render function, and I'll just say render return. Before I specify the return statement, let me just destructure some of the props and state. So I'll say const images equals this dot props, and I'll also do const selected index, and I'll set that equal to this dot state. We will use these throughout the render function, so it's just easier if I just destructure them right here. So in the return, we're going to have one view that's going to sort of encapsulate everything. And we'll give it an inline style of height, let's see, height 100% and width of 100%. All right. And I'll do a scroll view is the first thing I'm going to do within this view. Scroll view. The scroll view is going to have children, so I'll open and close it. Now go ahead and specify the children right now. So we're going to take our images array, and we're going to specify an image component for each one of them. So I'll say images.map, and I'll do a parameter of image and an arrow function. And it's going to return JSX, so I'll specify open and close parentheses. And I'll specify an image component that's not going to have children, and it's going to have a few properties. One is the key, which will just set that equal to image. And then I'll do the source, and that'll be set to a URI of the image. And I'm going to have one more property, which is going to be the style. I'll set this to style, and I haven't set this yet. I haven't created this yet, but I'll just go and specify styles dot background image, and I'll create that here in a little bit. All right, so that should be it for the initial scroll view. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and create this background image style, just so I can give it something to look at over here on the right. So down here, I'll create our style sheet. I'll say const styles equals style sheet dot create, and I'll specify a background image. And it's going to be an object of a few properties, height of 100%, and a width of the this variable that we specified up here, device width. Device width. All right. So I'm going to go and save that. And let's see if that renders onto the screen. So you cannot find variable background carousel. Oh. So on the we need to make sure that we export this class. So I'll do export background carousel, and I'll save it. Now I come over here to our main app.js file. I'm going to import background carousel. So I'll import background carousel from /background carousel. I'll make sure to spell import correctly. Okay, we do have a blank screen, but if we just come in here and add two properties to scroll view, it should be fixed. So I'll add two properties, one called horizontal, the other one called paging enabled. Horizontal just means that the list is going to be horizontal rather than vertical, which is the default. And paging enabled means that when you swipe, you go one full page rather than some sort of more discrete length. So I'll just save that, and then I'll refresh the phone. And now it's working, so we've got our image. Let's see if we try to scroll here. So you see there, if I try to scroll a little bit, it doesn't do anything. But if I go farther, it'll go one full page. And I think it might be a little buggy here and there, but for the most part it's working. So now that we've done that, the next thing is to get those little white dots here at the bottom. And we'll use some tricks with absolute positioning to get that to work. So after the scroll view, let's come down here to the bottom and let's add in another view. And this view is going to have children. It's essentially going to have a series of views within this view, and each one of these inner views is going to represent one white circle. We'll iterate over the images again. However, we're not actually going to really use the image. We're going to use another piece on here called the index, which is the second parameter. And I'm just going to specify I for that. And this should return JSX, so we'll do parentheses. And we'll open that up. And it's going to take a view. And this view is not going to have children, so we'll just close it off like that. And then we'll specify a few parameters on this view. The first thing is key, which will actually set that to the image, assuming that's unique. And then we'll specify the style. And this is essentially how we're making the white circle. We're going to actually set this equal to an array. And we are going to specify some styles below. So the first thing I'll do is I'll say styles dot, and I'll just say white circle. And I haven't created this yet. And I'll also create another thing on this view up here. I'll set the equal to style, and then styles dot, I'll call it circle div. And so let me go ahead and specify those below. So to do that, on our style sheet, we just create a new entry, and I'll say circle div. And this is going to have an absolution, or a position of absolute, which allows us to basically put it anywhere on the page without regards to any other item. And we do this by specifying top, bottom, right, left parameters. In this case, I'll just do 15 pixels from the bottom. So I'll just say bottom 15, which essentially does that. And then I'll specify a height, a small height of 10. And then I do want to do some formatting with their children. And you do that by using this flexbox property. So I'll do display, display flex. And I'm going to give it a flex direction of row. In React Native, it's column by default, so you need to specify row. And then I'll do justify content center and align items of center. And that should be good to go. I'll do another style object called white circle. And this one is going to be, it's essentially going to be the small white circle. So it's going to have a small width and height, and it's going to have a border radius of half that, which essentially creates a circle. So I'll specify a width of a small item, or small number of pixels, I'll just say 6, a height of the same, and a border radius of half that, which is 3. I'll also give it some spacing between each div, so I'll give it a margin of 5. And I'm going to give it its color of course, white. So I'll say background color, and I'll say hashtag FFF, which is white. So I should be able to save that. And let's see if we can get that to render. Okay, so they're there. I think I missed one thing here. On this circle div, just give it a width of 100%. Yes, and it's going to stretch it all the way across the screen and center it with our flexbox operations. Alright, so that's good. Now, so another thing you'll notice is that the current selected one is not highlighted. And obviously if we change to another pages, Those are not getting changed either. So we do need to set that up. And that is going to be a few steps to get that to work. The first thing I'll do is really the entire logic behind this is we're going to say here, if that white circle, if the index is equal to our selected index in our state, we're actually going to change the opacity of that particular circle. So we do this inside our style array. We'll specify a second object, and we'll set the opacity equal to a ternary operator, which is I'll say if I equals selected index question mark. If that is true, set that to a lower opacity of 0.5. If it's false, set that equal to 1. And I'll save that. And if I refresh this, hopefully this first item should then be have a different color. And yes, it does. So that indicates that the current page is this first one. Now, however, this won't update if I move on. So if you see, that's not getting updated. So we do have to put in that logic. All right, so to get that to work, there's a few things we'll do. First, we're going to create another function in our class. We're going to call that set selected index. And it's going to take an arrow function, and I'm going to specify one parameter called event. And there's a few different things we're going to do on here, and we're going to grab some items off of this event parameter. But just kind of bear with me on this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to get the width of the view size. And that means basically the width of whatever our scroll view property is. In this case, it's the entire device. So I guess we could just get the device size. But for this example, we're going to use this native event to get that property. And we also want to get the basically the current position in our scroll view. So like how far are we away from the very beginning of the scroll view? Get current position of the scroll view. And then I guess in theory, if we have the current position of the scroll view and we divide that by the width of the current selection, that'll give us essentially what page it's on. And we'll have to do some rounding to get that to work. So to get the width of the view size, we're going to set that equal to a parameter called view size, and on that event parameter, we'll get a thing called .native event, and then .layout measurement, and we'll specify .width. Now to get the current position in the scroll view, we'll say content offset. We'll set that equal to event.native event dot content offset dot x. X is obviously the horizontal offset. So like if I'm on, like the third page or the last page, this would essentially be the scroll view, or I guess like the view size width times 5, because it's the 5th page over. So now we can calculate our, I guess, current page. So if we do const selected index equals our content offset divided by the view size. And we'll just wrap this around a math.floor function just to wipe out any sort of rounding that could be there. So we'll say math.floor. We'll wrap that with our result. And this will give us our new page that we're on. And so we'll just need to take this and apply it to our state. So we'll do this.setState, and we'll set that equal to our new page. So now we have to actually call this set selected index. So in our scroll view, there's tons of functions in here, but the one that we're going to use is on momentum scroll end. We'll set that equal to that function we just created, this dot set selected index. All right, so let's just kind of save this. Let's try to refresh. Okay, there you go. Now you can see that this white dot is now getting updated, which is really, really handy. Now the last piece of this is we need to get that automated piece down, where it will automatically rotate every so many seconds. So to do that, we're going to use the React component lifecycle method called component did mount. Component did mount. And we'll set that equal to an arrow function. And there's a few things that are going to go on here. The first one is we're going to use this method called setInterval, which is a native JavaScript method. And this is essentially going to take in a function. And I'll just use a blank function for now, a blank arrow function. And then the second parameter is the number of seconds in which it will essentially execute this function. So for this example, I'll just use 3 seconds or 3,000 milliseconds, which is what I inputted right here. And now within here, we're actually going to do our operation. Now this does get a little strange because there's two things that we have to do. One, we have to alter the scroll view to move to a new position, but we also have to set the state of selected index to the new page. So there's really two operations that we're doing in here. However, to really bound this together, we can take advantage of setState's callback function that essentially lets us do some sort of operation after we set the new state. So to do that, we'll first call this .setState. And we're going to access the previous state with this. We're going to specify prev, and we're going to set it equal to an arrow function. And this is going to take in a new state. And we'll set this to selected index, and then we'll do prev.selected index plus 1. And this essentially just iterates to the next page. And if we go to the end of this set state, we can put a comma here. We can execute a callback function. So we'll do that. And we'll open that up. And here's where we're actually going to do the scroll view alteration. And we're going to be using the scroll ref reference that we were able to grab off the scroll view. So we'll do that right now. So I'll say ref equals this dot scroll ref, which is this ref that we created up here at the top of the class. And now this allows us to access this basically scroll view throughout the component. So I'll be able to say this dot scroll ref, and you can specify dot current, and then you can do this function called scroll to, and it takes in a object as a parameter with 3 properties. The first one we'll specify is animated equals true, which allows us to see the nice little animation when you scroll. And we'll specify y equals 0, which there's going to be no vertical alteration. Then we'll specify x, and we're actually going to set this equal to a position in our list. And so for this case, we'll want to do basically the device width multiplied by whatever page we're going to. So it essentially will scroll, however many device width links over for whatever page that we're setting our state to. So to do that, we'll specify our device width multiplied by our new selected index state. So we can do that by doing this dot state.selected index. And we can save that. And let's refresh this. And let's wait a few seconds. And then it scrolls, which is nice. However, it'll keep scrolling. And it'll get to the end. And it should not scroll anymore. So the last thing that we have to do is we'll need to make logic to wrap this back to the first one. To do that, it's really simple. Well, I should say kind of simple. We'll just need to alter this set state right here. We'll have to put in a condition to say, if this previous state is at the full length of images, then set this equal to 0. So we'll do that. Let's just kind of remove this CT, and we'll say does the previous selected index, is this equal to is this equal to this.props.images.length minus sorry if I get that right, -1. If that's true, go back to 0. In any other case, just do what we did before with the prev.selected index plus 1. Save that. And let's try that again. So let that iterate to the end. And we'll see if that resets back. And it does. All right, now we have a fully functioning carousel image. So that's really it for this video. If you like this content, please like this video and subscribe and hit the bell notifications for new content. See you later.